Hello, True Health Seekers, and welcome to another exciting episode of the Learn True Health podcast. You're going to love today's episode with Forrest Knutson. He teaches some really awesome things about decreasing the stress response. And that is something 100% of us need, especially after some of the interviews that I've done recently that I'm going to be publishing soon. So many experts are talking about the leading cause of illness, chronic illness, being either caused by or exacerbated by stress. So if we do this simple breathing exercise every day, we can all lower our stress levels and prevent disease. That is very exciting. Now, please go to learntruehealth.com/group and join the Learn True Health Facebook group. Thanksgiving is just around the corner here in the United States, and that means there's going to be some really awesome deals that all these health companies end up releasing their, Cyber Monday or Black Friday specials. And I make sure I go around collecting my favorite ones and I announce them all in the Facebook group. So if you want to make sure you're getting the best deals on some of the coolest gadgets and supplements and all those fun things, fun holistic things that are great gifts for you, because you should treat yourself and pamper yourself and take care of yourself, because if you're not around for your family, then who will be? So we should take care of ourselves. Self-care is a gift we give to our family. So no more guilt when you take care of yourself. You take care of yourself and it makes sure that you're around for your family. So treat yourself. Join the Facebook group, Learn True Health Facebook group, so you can get those announcements that are going to come out next week. Make sure you stock up on some of the really awesome deals. I know there's going to be the best deal ever on the magnesium soak, which is my absolute favorite treat that I give myself. It is so therapeutic to soak in magnesium and make sure that I'm filling up my magnesium stores. When we are deficient in magnesium, there's 1,800 processes in the body that cannot function correctly, and everything seems to break down without magnesium. So join the Facebook group, and so you can learn about the best deal I've ever heard on this magnesium soak. I know there's going to be some other really great specials also. All my favorite gadgets and goodies, and I'll be snatching them up along with you come Cyber Monday. Awesome. I look forward to seeing you there in the Facebook group, Learn True Health. And please also go to my website, learntruehealth.com, and when a little pop-up comes, put your email in. I promise not to spam you. I don't sell your information to anyone. I just send a few emails a month, and I definitely will make sure I send out an email about all of my favorite Black Friday specials that are happening. Just in case you're not on Facebook, then you can join the email list. Awesome. Thank you so much for being a listener and for sharing my episodes with your friends and family to help us spread this information and help as many people as possible to learn true health. Welcome to the Learn True Health podcast. I'm your host, Ashley James. This is episode 393. I am so excited to have back on the show with us Forrest Knutson. Forrest, you were here on the show back all the way at the beginning, episode 25 and episode 32. So much has happened since you were on the show. Know. Welcome back.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. Yeah, it's been, I think there might have been one more in there somewhere, but
I've had you on a few times.
Right.
But it feels like years.
It feels forever.
It's been hundreds of episodes.
You just, every time I come back, you've got a million more people listening. So
millions of people. Millions.
You need a maniacal laugh in there in the middle. Just
right.
Like
Millions.
Perfect. Well done. Hard work.
It's all hard work, blood, sweat, and tears. I love what you teach, and I love that you started your YouTube channel. Since we had you on the show, you are a machine. You pump out videos each week teaching people the different aspects of meditation from the medical standpoint, from the yogic standpoint, from the neuroscience standpoint, from the neuro-linguistic programming standpoint. Like, you are coming at it from many different angles. And I love that you love focusing on heart rate variability. I actually learned about heart rate variability from a handful of naturopathic physicians as I was interviewing them over the course of the last 3.5 years. And it kept coming up, and I'm like, what is this? What is this heart rate variability? That sounds so weird. And yet they were saying that it was one of the most important things we need to focus on when reversing chronic disease, because it was this marker that allowed us to see whether the body was in stress mode or in healing mode. And that if we were having healthy heart rate variability, we could turn on the body's magnificent healing response. And then here you are teaching a technique that within minutes people are turning on the heart rate variability response. And so you're teaching this on your YouTube channel, thatyogiguy.com. Of course, the links to everything that Forrest does is going to be in the show notes of today's podcast at learntohealth.com. Welcome back to the show. I've just got so many things I want you to teach us. Teach us how to turn on this healing response in the body.
Beautiful. Yeah, I'd love to. So the way that I teach it is very organic, because I want you to be able to do it at any time, in any place. So if you're at home, that's the perfect place, right? You can close the door, you can turn off your phone for a minute or 5 minutes or 10 minutes, even better, and really sink into it while you're at home, while you're free from distraction. And then maybe you're at work and you want to take a break and get into heart rate variability. Or let's say you're a professional athlete and you're about to tee off at the golf course, or get ready for your set or whatever it is. And you want to get in the zone before you do that. Well, the very best thing that you can do is get yourself into heart rate variability resonance. And you do that through your breath. So it's resonant breathing. And the way that I teach it is the Holy Trinity of breath. So there are 3 rules that we can follow as we breathe that will basically guarantee that you're going to put yourself into heart rate variability if you will do it for about 5 to 10 minutes. It should probably take about 5 minutes, but we say 10 just to make sure that you really get yourself into it. Once you begin, so what I teach after that is that there are 4 proofs where you can begin to notice that you are accomplishing this, that it is making a physiological shift in your body. And so then oh my God, I'm doing it. Nobody had to tell you you're doing it. You can tell yourself because you have these internal perceived proofs, which are not made up in your mind, but they are actually in your body. So there's a psychophysiological shift that has taken place. So that's how I teach it. So the first rule is that we want to lower our breath rate under 7 breaths per minute. That's the very first thing. So that breath would be 4 seconds in and 5 seconds out.
Could people do this like by accident? Or do you have to really be conscientious of your breathing to lower it to 7 breaths a minute?
You possibly could do it by accident, absolutely, if you're concentrated on something very deeply. And so that's the traditional meditation guidance, is to concentrate very deeply on one thing. And while you do that, your breath rate will automatically reduce. And you can see that when you're at work or when you're really into something or you're concentrating very, very deeply on one subject, you'll notice that your breath rate drops automatically. If you're in a very loving state, not an excited loving state, but a very, very pure loving state, then the same thing can happen. Your breath rate can drop. When you're in a very safe, loving atmosphere, then your breath rate will automatically drop as well. But to make sure that you can actually do it on purpose, that's the Holy Trinity. So it gives you a real self-reliance that you can do this thing, you can accomplish it, and you can do it anytime that you want.
Before we go on to the rest of the steps, I feel like we should understand a bit more about what heart rate variability is and why we want to do it. Like what is it? What benefits do we get from creating a more distinct heart rate variability? Like who benefits from it? Can you just walk us through for those who've never heard of heart rate variability?
There's a thing called sinus arrhythmia. So that was understood first, and then building on that understanding was this idea of heart rate variability. And what that is that when you breathe in, there's There's more work going on in the lungs. And so the heart needs to pump. It needs to do more work at that point.
Is that because because the heart is basically in this chest cavity, is creating more pressure on the heart, so the heart has to beat harder?
There's a lot of complicated things going on at the same time, but the simple reason is that you've got gases in your lungs. They have to be processed, and that's the work of the heart. So the heart does that work, and it has to pump more during that time when there's breath in the lungs. And then when the air is out of the lungs, there's less work to do. And so the heart rate has a chance, if we're not in a stress state, it has a chance to lower the heart rate. And it does that because your diaphragm goes up, and that puts more pressure on the entire thoracic cavity. And that all that pressure translates backwards towards the spine. And right along the spine is the dorsal vagal nerve. This is the parasympathetic nerve. It's one of the aspects of the parasympathetic nerve, and it goes straight up into your medulla. So all that pressure goes on the dorsal vagal nerve, and that nerve sends a signal to the medulla, which is the breath center, and it sends a signal down to the heart that, hey, there's more pressure, therefore lower the heart rate. So the heart rate comes down a little bit. And now you've got a variance. So the in-breath, the heart rate will go up, and the out-breath, the heart rate will go down if we're not in a stress state. That's heart rate variability in a nutshell.
So it's the ratio between the beats happening during an in-breath and the beats happening during an out-breath, or when we've exhaled and we haven't inhaled. If there's a pause after exhaling and we haven't inhaled yet, so that time, basically the time of the inhale and the time of the exhale and the pause, you want the ratio to be great.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's not so much the pause as it is the actual out breath. The pause, it's there as well, but when you're trying to induce heart rate variability, the pause can mess you up. So if you pause too long while you're trying to induce it, so once it's been induced, that's a whole nother story. But when you're trying to get out of a semi-stress state and into more resonance, and that resonance, so what does that mean? That just means that your heart rate and your breath are working together as one system. There's a resonance between them. And that means your breath goes in, which, you feel it filling up your lungs. And at the same time, your heart rate is going to go up a little bit. And then you breathe out and you feel the breath coming out of your lungs going down. Your diaphragm goes up actually, but you feel the breath coming out of you. And at the same time, your heart rate is also going down slightly. So there's that resonance. It's coming up and going down, both of them simultaneously. That's why we call it resonance. Heart rate variability, resonant breathing.
So when this happens, and what's really interesting is I like listening to my son's heartbeat. And I put my when he's sleeping, I'll put my ear to his chest, and it kind of freaked me out the first few times until I realized, because I took him to the doctor and it was like, I think there's something wrong with him, and they're like, no, he's fine. But he has a very large difference between the heart rate during an inhale and the heart rate during an exhale. And I was worried that he had like AFib, because I'm listening to his heart and it'd be like bump, 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 and then he'd exhale, it'd be like bump, 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 and I'm like, whoa, what is going on? So
Wow.
there was a really big difference. So that is heart rate variability. So it's beating faster when you're inhaling and slower when you're exhaling.
Correct. That's exactly right. And you're not the only one to ever be freaked out by that. So the story, I think I told you guys this last time, but since it's been so long, maybe it's okay to retell you the story.
We have millions of listeners.
Right.
Millions.
Okay, great. Perfect. So the story that I love this story. The story that I like to tell is that the Russian cosmonauts were up in space and they had a whole team, monitoring them. And this was before, some of the real-time satellite information was able to pass through and you had video and all that. This was just simple radio at the time. But they had them, their cosmonauts, hooked up and were monitoring their signals, including their heart rate. And while they were doing this, one of their cosmonauts was up there meditating, but they didn't know that. And they saw, so the team that was there, one of the head guy was monitoring this, and he saw that his cosmonaut's heart rate was going up really high, and then it was going way down, and it was going up really high, and then go way down. And then he thought, oh my God, this guy's having a heart attack in space. And so they got them on the line. They said, what's happening? What's happening? What's going on? And the cosmonaut, what? I'm meditating, So he was...
How to shoot, duh.
leave me alone, I'm meditating. So funny story. And from there, they actually began to study it. So very, very interesting. And a lot of that research is the basis. So is the basis of some of the research that was done here in the United States. It was they confirmed a lot of the things that some researchers were finding here.
And what I've heard is that people who are sick don't have heart rate variability.
When you're in a stress state, the heart rate and the breath disjoin, and so they're not going up and down in this resonance that I'm talking about. And your heart rate will be, when you're very, very sick, your heart rate will be stay steady, beat to beat. And a way to think about that is that you're like a plate of glass, and any pressure on the glass is liable to break it. And that's not a good thing. Nature loves flexibility. And that's why this variance in the heart rate is such an indicator of health. I mean, this is really an emerging field. So when I came onto YouTube, I said heart rate variability breathing. And people are like, I don't think that's the correct term. And I'm like, okay, well, there's sinus arrhythmia and there's heart rate variability resonant breathing. We can draw it out into a longer name, but sometimes when I'm talking, I just shorten it a bit. So this heart rate variability breathing was not on YouTube when I started, but now you can look it up and it's a search term.
So you were like the first person on YouTube to create a video on how to successfully achieve heart rate variability through breathing.
In terms of defining it purely as a set of rules that you can follow and get success with, you don't have to hook yourself up to a monitor or anything like that. I think some of the instructions that I saw at the time were like develop a pleasant feeling and just concentrate on that. So it was very
obtuse.
It was a little bit hard to follow and make sure that you could do it. I like things that you can follow and you can have success every single time. That's what I love. So it's really a developing field, and you're going to see it, I predict, explode.
Well, you were telling me that life insurance companies use this as an indicator whether they're going to cover people or not. Can you tell us a bit about that?
Yeah, they're researching it now. I don't know how far ahead. If one of your listeners knows, maybe they can leak it and tell us. But I would love to know more. My understanding is that the insurance field is looking at this as an indicator of health and mortality, so that they will look at it and decide how long you're going to live based on how much heart rate variability resonance you have in any moment, so that they can predict, whether to insure you or how long they're going to insure you or what they're going to charge you in order to insure you for life insurance. And they're finding it's probably one of the most effective indicators that they've ever found. So these are people with lots of money to throw at this kind of research. And so it's really exciting. Sounds a bit morbid, but it's actually really exciting.
Well, it's really exciting if we can use it to our advantage to live to be 120 years old,
Exactly,
healthfully.
exactly. And you look at that and you hear that and you're like, oh my God, this is so exciting. But I look at it in terms of yogis, and what the old yogis said was that we have a set amount of breaths to breathe in one life. And if you breathe less, so what I said, that first rule, you got to lower your breath rate, right? So if we breathe less, we will automatically live longer. So they understood it was an indicator a couple thousand years ago at least.
It's interesting because we're taught that, aerobic exercise is something that's very healthy for us, but you do a lot of breaths during aerobic
Yes,
exercise. Do we get into
yes,
heart rate variability if we're exercising, or is that too
yes.
stressful?
Well, a little bit will take you a long way. So if you raise your heart rate and then you relax, it's that relaxation which benefits you the most. So you get benefit from pumping it up, but it's the relaxation phase which is most beneficial to your body long term. So
Mm.
work then rest, work then rest. That's the cycle that's going to benefit you the most in terms of health.
So cut out the middleman and just rest a bunch.
That's right. E- exactly. But don't let your couch swallow you. But yeah, it's the balance, the middle way that's going to benefit you the very most.
What health benefits have you personally noticed? Now, Forrest, you and I have known each other since 2006. So you've always been fairly healthy, but I
Yeah,
know you're also very conscientious of and very present to your body. So in the
right.
last, and I know you've been meditating and focusing and studying this subject and studying neuroscience and meditation for many years, and you started when you were in high school.
Hmm.
When when did you start focusing on heart rate variability? Has it only been the last 2 years or 3 years?
It's been recent. I so I was monastic for about 5.5 years, and I went very deeply into the study of meditation at that time, and I found this obscure reference to the breath that it would shift as it goes in and out of your nose, and I thought this was fascinating. And in the process of studying this psychophysiological shift in the body that happens in meditation, I thought, well, that you could turn this into a whole biofeedback device. I didn't have that terminology, but I understood it, and that's exactly what I did. So I developed it for myself, and I call it the 5 breath states. There's a bunch of other information. There's a bunch of other shifts like tastes in the mouth and length of the breath as it exits the nose. So there's a whole bunch of other information. I threw all that out and I just concentrated on the one thing which was the easiest to feel inside the body. And what I believe is actually happening is that we have these little things inside the nose called the turbinates. And as the sympathetic and parasympathetic nervous system come into balance through meditation, they affect the turbinates in the nose, and that affects the breath. And so you'll actually feel these shifts take place in the nose. So I became, I can't, how can I explain? I started playing with this, and it affected my meditation so profoundly that I just went crazy with it. I was doing it every day, all the time. And I didn't have any language to explain why this was such a big deal. And I tried telling, the people I lived with, the yogis that I lived with, and other people, my family and my friends, hey, this is a big deal. You have to try this out. And my response was always, okay. I'm like, no, you don't get it. This is a really big deal. And I couldn't translate it. So when I saw, let's see, I'm going to slaughter his name. His name is Professor Gevertz. when I saw him explaining heart rate variability, my brain exploded. This is it. This is what I was doing in a different way, going very, very deep into heart rate variability resonance through this 5 breath state process. So if you really want to know about the 5 breath states, I've got a video on that on YouTube. It's called the 5 breath states. So you can see that on my channel. And I go through them and I explain what they are. They're also in my book, Hacking the Universe. There's a little plug. But anyway, that's what, so I was doing it. Oh God, what was that? That must have been 2001. So I was doing it on my own, but I didn't have a language to explain it. And what got me so excited was there was no more hit and miss in my meditations. It was consistent. I could go deep every single time. And it was experiential. I knew it. It was just a huge milestone. It was a watershed moment. And so when I saw the heart rate variability resonant breathing language, I thought, oh my God, this is amazing. So it's just a glorious framework to talk about meditation. So if you're a Buddhist, if you're a Christian and you pray, if you're doing anything which is of that interior introspective world, you have to begin with heart rate variability. Either you're doing it unconsciously or you're doing it consciously, but either way, all introspection begins with this reset point, this balance point of heart rate variability resonance.
So when you started to focus on heart rate variability and breathing specifically for shifting heart rate variability, were you then achieving new heart rate variability, or had you already been achieving it for years because you meditate?
Because of the 5 breath states, I'd already been achieving it for like 15 years at that point.
Got it.
I didn't have a language to explain it. Really cool. The people on my channel, they try it out and they report back, and their experiences, it's like, I'm just doing your heart rate variability breathing and this happened, and it's just explosive.
Like what? Can you give some examples?
So a lot of times they will suddenly shift and fall into a very shallow breath naturally. And in the meditative world, this is called, one of the names for this is called the tranquil breath. So it just, your whole system gets so relaxed and so centered and so balanced that you automatically shift into a very shallow breath. You'll probably go into a trance momentarily, a trance-like state. You'll be watching your breath, and then suddenly you'll just kind of float off, right, mentally for a moment, and then you'll come back and you'll notice that your breath is very, very shallow. So it's a whole different system of breath that your body has entered into naturally. And then your whole system is working so quietly that you can actually begin the true process of meditation, because none of that body machinery is getting in the way of your mind. So let's say you're a researcher, right? This would be the perfect time to begin your thoughts on your research. Or let's say you're going to pray. This would be the perfect time to begin your prayer. Or if you're a meditator, this is the perfect time to pick your one idea. Let's say you're going to practice, you're a Buddhist and you're going to practice metta, which is to take one thought like gratitude or love and just put yourself on that one thought. Now it's the perfect time because the body machinery is out of the way. It's not making a ton of noise and distracting you and drawing you back to the outward world. So you're able to introspect much more easily.
I know we could go into your YouTube channel, thatyogiguy.com. We could go there and we could read the comments of people sharing their experiences. Has anyone had any stories of success in terms of noticing shifts in their health?
Yes, they say that they feel more alive and more centered, calm. Things don't disturb you as much because you have this balance, this interior centered state.
Mm-hmm. Obviously, is 15 years ago you said. Can you
Mm-hmm.
think back to before you had you really figured out this type of breathing that triggered heart rate variability? Can you go back in your mind and think about sort of your health before and after? Did you have any noticeable health changes from, because you've been meditating for so long, but your meditation wasn't
Right.
really centered around creating heart rate variability. So people can meditate and not necessarily create great heart rate variability.
Mm-hmm.
And then you do these specific things either in meditation or just you don't have to be meditating, you just breathe this way and create heart rate variability. So you don't, what I'm saying is you don't have to meditate in order to create it, but you were doing it within meditation. So can you look back 15 years ago and see, is there a difference in your health or vitality that you could tell the before and after when you started creating heart rate variability?
Yeah, absolutely. You have a lot less energy when you're not in heart rate variability resonance. So your concentration is going to lack. Um, your stamina is going to lack. Your ease, just being in your own skin, is going to be less because you're in a stress state. So, I mean, your cortisol is up. All of that is going to affect the entire system. So, with heart rate variability, your serotonin goes up. Everything goes up. Your rest. It's like, you're in your car and you come to the stop sign, and you don't sit there and go "Roar" and rev your engine while you're at the stop sign, right? You you let the car go down into an idle. So imagine that you go through life revving your engine constantly when you don't need to. What's that going to do to your car? It's
Mm.
going to put stress on your car, which is not necessary. And that's like the majority of our life, right? Where you're at work, your boss comes up and you freak out, your adrenaline goes up, your whole system goes out of whack. And, if you were in the jungle and the jungle cat comes up, you get up and you run for your life, and now you're putting carbon in your muscles. But when you're at work and you don't jump up when your boss comes, maybe you should, but we don't. We sit there, we sit there, and the adrenaline goes up, but there's no carbon in the muscles because we're just sitting there, and so there's no carbon oxygen exchange within the body, and so you're hyperventilating because you're in stress, but you're not exchanging that oxygen. Just stays in your blood. It doesn't transfer to the muscles because there's no carbon in the muscles. It's a marketplace, and they have to be able to exchange one for the other. So that's how the whole system falls apart, how it gets out of whack.
Can you go deeper into that? I know
Yeah,
you've explained it to me off air before,
right.
with a bit more detail, but I don't
Sure.
wanna glaze over this because I remember I think you were like called me up one day and you were like, I figured something really cool out about carbon.
Right.
So take us back to when you first figured this out. How'd
Sure.
you figure this out?
So the the body, so the breath and the body are like a marketplace. So when you breathe in a lot, you oxygenate the blood, and that oxygen floats through your blood, and it comes up against your muscles, and it says, "Hey, I got oxygen. I want to buy some carbon." But if there's no carbon in your muscles, then the marketplace doesn't work. There's nothing to exchange. So the muscles say, "Hey, I don't have any carbon, so I can't buy your oxygen." And so the blood just keeps going, just cycling that oxygen, and then it gets rid of it for nothing. It was all for nothing. So when you either work out a little bit and you get carbon in the muscles, now you've got the ability to create the exchange. So you're breathing a lot, you get oxygen in the blood shows up to the muscle, and it exchanges the oxygen for carbon. So the carbon goes into the blood to be recycled, and the oxygen goes into the muscle to revamp the muscle, to oxygenate the muscle. And that's what you want. That's the carbon oxygen exchange when it's working properly. So the way the body was designed, the jungle cat comes up to eat us and we jump up. We're full of adrenaline, we're full of oxygen because we're breathing like crazy, we're running for our lives. And so there's carbon in the muscles and everything's working right. The carbon and the oxygen exchange takes place. Then you fast forward to today, we don't jump up, we sit there. There's no carbon oxygen exchange. So as a yogi, how do you fix this? Or as a heart rate variability resonant breather, how do you fix this? Well, you lower the breath rate. And by lowering the breath rate, you introduce more carbon into the cycle of the breath. And that carbon and oxygen floats through the blood. And essentially, you're kickstarting your own body economy. And the blood gives the carbon to the muscles, and the muscles exchange the carbon back for oxygen. And now you've kickstarted the economy in your body, and you have carbon oxygen exchange because you have a lowered breath rate. And so automatically you're going to feel, if you do it very well and very deeply, you'll feel your whole body tingle. Like it's come alive for the first time in 20 years. It's kind of insane. You get used to it, but it's really kind of crazy.
Cool. I like it.
Yeah, right?
So what's the downside to not producing a lot of carbon?
The downside to not producing a lot of carbon.
Well, besides being lazy or not, not moving. I mean, is there really a
Right,
downside to we're doing a lot of breathing, we're in stress response, the boss is coming, we're just
right.
sitting there, the adrenaline's going,
There's
and
no,
we're not really
there's no,
moving, we're not making
right,
carbon. Like what's the downside to like just breathing in a bunch of oxygen but not having a lot of carbon being produced?
right. There's no exchange. There's no exchange that takes place. The body and the muscles, which form a huge part of the body, and all of the tissues which are in proximity to the muscles, they don't get oxygenated. So you don't come alive, right? You don't,
Like you're not really like giving the mitochondria everything it needs and giving every cell everything it needs because
right.
we need to basically move the body in order to kickstart that economy is what you're saying.
Yes, you need to either move the body or introduce a lower breath rate to introduce carbon into the mix. So when we think of breath, we usually think of oxygen, but there's actually a host of gases which are in the mix. And if you take those out, you begin to destroy the rest of the balance. So it's not just oxygen. And so a huge part of our breath is actually carbon. So we're often told that we need to breathe more. And this is kind of a wrong idea because it can lead to the idea that hyperventilation is a good thing. And it could be a short term, some positive effects, but long term, it's not going to benefit you. And so what we actually need is less breathing, a lowered breath rate.
I was recently reading an article in I think a bunch of British scientists, I think it was a British medical journal that had measured weight loss and
Mm,
determined that most weight loss like where's the fat go? That's always been my like question. When let's say someone loses 25 pounds, where did it go?
hmm.
Like you didn't pee it out or poop it out. Like where did it go, right? And
Right.
most fat we exhale. Isn't that
Oh, wow.
crazy? That they actually measured the carbon and they figured out that the fat is broken down, obviously energy, and the body uses energy, but that it's broken down and leaves the body as carbon and other
Wow.
byproducts. So most weight loss, it leaves oh, and also heat. The body, uses that fat to metabolic energy.
Mm-hmm.
But they could measure in heat and in carbon leaving breath, and like measure 25 pounds basically of fat loss,
Wow.
by measuring the carbon leaving the breath, and proving that was your fat. So we're breathing out our fat. I mean, in that way, wouldn't hyperventilation be good? Like, let's breathe more,
Right.
lose weight.
Right. Well, it's possible. It definitely is going to work the body a lot to hyperventilate, but your long-term benefit has to be the resonance between the heart and the breath that it's going to. So there's the Wim Hof method, right, which is a lot of hyperventilation in the beginning, and it's an easy way to get into a, a state where you don't need to breathe. And so
Mm.
it's much easier to practice breath holds after you've hyperventilated. But the problem that I see is that that's going to work a little bit, but it's also going to make you very tired sometimes. If you're not up on your game, if you're not at the top of your game and you do a lot of hyperventilation, you're going to feel very tired. And so it's going to adversely affect your body if you're doing that day after day and you're not doing it when you're at your peak. And so it's just I have a lot of worries about people who really get into the Wim Hof method. I think it could be better explained. It could be better explained exactly what his end goal is and what the breathing is for. So you can basically do 3 kinds of breathing. You can do heart rate variability. You can 4. You can be in a normal state. You can do heart rate variability resonant breathing. You can do hyperventilation or a purging breath, and you can do a breath hold. Those are the basic 4 things that you could do with your breath. And they all have their place, but it's the one that's really the most beneficial physically and spiritually, so to speak, is the heart rate variability resonant breathing.
Well, it's triggering within minutes. You said like within 10 minutes, it's triggering the autonomic nervous system's parasympathetic response of rest
Right.
and digest, lowering cortisol levels, lowering the stress levels in the body, stress hormones in the body, shunting blood away from the limbs into the digestion, and bathing all the organs in oxygen-rich blood. It's allowing blood flow to open up to all the logic centers of the brain,
Yes.
and turning on digestion, turning on, even epigenetically, turning on enzymatic processes of digestion and enzymes for healing. So it's is the perfect state to be in for healing.
Yeah.
And then if something happens, like the boss calls us and we need to jump up, or there's a rock in the road and we need to drive around it really quick, we need our stress response, we can turn that on for a moment and then come back into the parasympathetic response of healing. Some people feel like they need stress in order to be better at their job, like a high stress job.
Right.
And I've heard that before in many different ways, but it's actually this state of the parasympathetic state where we have full access to the brain, because in stress response it shunts blood away from the logic centers of the brain. And so if we're trying to meet a deadline or studying or trying to finish a project, if we don't have access to our full brain, it makes it very difficult to be efficient. But when we're in the parasympathetic nervous system response of rest and digest, we are able to really concentrate. You said like even on one, like focused in on one task, and not have the voice chatter and the sort of ADD brain going on. Have you ever had anyone share with you any results about reducing ADD or ADHD as a result of this type of breathing?
No, I haven't, but I absolutely think it would work exceptionally well for that purpose. So I haven't heard that specifically, but I think it would be a fantastic uh, recipe for reversal of that. But um, you that's a perfect point what you talked about, and you would know that instantly if you spoke with a professional athlete and you said, hey, do you want to come into a game being all stressed out, or would you rather be in kind of the zone where you're in it but you're not stressed out about it.
Mm.
Of course they're going to tell you, I would rather be in the zone, and that's exactly the best state to be in, and that's a state of HRV resonance.
Cool. Well, so listeners who have ADD or ADHD, please do this, what Forrest is going to teach us today. And then come into the Facebook group, Learn True Health Facebook group, and let us know your results. Because I want to know if this helps people with ADD and ADHD. Like, I want to know real stories of success. I think that would be really cool. Because
That would be awesome.
ADHD is partially from neurochemical, I don't want to say imbalance because that makes it sound like I'm calling them broken. Because I think that there's a place for us who have ADD. Like there's a place in this world, and but it can be cumbersome, to be
Right.
distracted by racing thoughts, and so I think part of it is maybe an imbalance of certain neurochemicals. Because I've seen people with ADD or ADHD find find peace
Hmm.
mentally when they come back into health even more. And
Right.
then partly it's strategy, partly it's unconscious programming. So, there's lots of like NLP, for example, neuro linguistic programming techniques for changing the unconscious programming to allow us to not have ADD or ADHD
Right.
limit us, right?
Right. Right.
But if we can do something like as simple as consciously changing our breath, and that then has a cascade effect and changes the neurological state of our brain and the state of our endocrine system, and just kind of cascades down and affects our whole body and our circulation and our energy levels and our vitality. I mean, just it's affecting every system, and that sounds wonderful. And if
Right.
we can do something as simple as breath and make it so that we are able to quiet our mind, focus more, I mean, I can see that people might even be able to no longer want to use a medication or use over the counter. Sometimes people self medicate with
Mhm.
drugs, alcohol, sugar, what have you,
Right.
that they might find that they're coming into balance and they don't need that.
Right.
Yeah.
I think it would be great. The whole premise of yogic meditation is that I'm going to use the body to affect the mind. So if you've ever tried to meditate and you're like, I can't do this, my brain is just all over the place. Well, that's very normal. And it's just a misconception because you're not meant to wrestle with your own mind in meditation, because if your mind fights your mind and one mind wins, you've still got your original problem. You still have your mind, right? And so the body follows this amazing rule. It's called the 80-20 rule, that for every one signal that your brain sends out, so your brain is like the general, and it sends out one signal to the body, hey, do this. And the body sends five signals back of messages giving, this, well, we did this and we felt this and this happened. It's feedback, right? So there's much more signals. Your neurology is set up, your nervous system is set up to give much more signals back to the brain than what is being sent out by the brain. So it's easier to control the brain from the body than it is to try and control the brain itself. So when you quiet the body, you will instantly quiet the mind. It's just the biggest lever in the room to make change.
Ha, I never thought of it that way.
Yeah, it's amazing, isn't it?
I'm sure you've said it that way to me before, but it never
Possibly.
really, it just the way you said it, it's like, so quieting the body helps to quiet the mind because for every one message the brain is sending out, it's receiving 5 signals back, which makes sense. If you think of just walking down a hallway, your brain is saying, all right, move this leg, move that leg, but you're hearing things, seeing things, feeling things, tasting things, like
Right.
there's so much more input going on.
Exactly. And so the yogi takes that rule and applies it to meditation in order to quiet the body, to quiet the mind. And then you've already, instead of wrestling with your mind and trying to stick it in a corner that it doesn't want to go into, you just affect the body, and then the mind follows suit automatically. That cascade of events. That's how it works. Another thing that you might want to think about with ADHD is that we have a left brain, which is kind of like a predator. So, for example, the bird will, when it's going to peck a seed, it will look down at the seed with its right eye, because the right eye is connected to the left brain. And so that predator brain, that predator part of the brain, which will focus on one thing, like the seed, is in activation as it's looking at that seed. So it's going to peck that one seed. And while that is happening, nature knows that the bird is very vulnerable because it's caught in that one thing, right? And so nature designed us with a whole other side of the brain, which is very, very disassociated from what's going on in the left brain. And that's the right brain. And the right brain has this spherical kind of perception of everything that's going on around us simultaneously. And that's the brain that warns us that something's not quite right when we don't actually know why it's warning us, right?
Ooh, like when we have a gut feeling that something's not okay?
That's right. That's right. So that is very possibly the right side of the brain telling us, trying to tell us something. It might not make logical sense, but it's an instinctual understanding that's coming from the right side of the brain, which is really, I like to call it the parent brain. So if you want to use older terminology, you could say it's the guardian angel in us. So it's looking out for us constantly. And it has to do that because you're vulnerable while you're concentrating on one thing. In our Western society, we develop that a lot, and it's very, very good for us. We have to be able to concentrate on one thing. We have to get a task done. We have to be, we have to have our list and go down our list and make the list done. That's just part of our life. But we also should develop this other side where we can benefit from everything we just completed. So we can go out and we can look at the sunset and enjoy it. We can watch the waves crash on the beach and enjoy it. That's more, so we can enjoy music, we can enjoy poetry. So one of the people I love to follow is Ian McGilchrist, and he's very, very great at describing the left and the right side of the brain. And so some of the science that came out originally, we said, oh my God, there's this huge difference between the left and the right side of the brain. And then they did more research and they said, well, actually there's signals going through the left and the right all the time. We were incorrect. But what Ian McGilchrist says is that, well, we weren't in that middle space. We were not asking the correct questions. So the most up-to-date research is showing that they were more correct the first time, that there is a big difference between the left and the right side of the brain, but it's not what, it's how. How does the brain respond to different things? And it responds as if we are two personalities. And so the way to think about that perhaps is that one is the child and one is the parent brain. So the left is the child, it's the predator, and the right is the parental or the watcher. And so we have in meditation circles, you'll hear a lot, be the watcher. And they're trying to induce that right side of the brain, to induce that very calm state. So when you're in a state where you're very manic, right, or very hyper, well, that's going to be a left brain process. And so there's a few tricks that you can do to induce the right brain very, very quickly and easily. And one of those is spatial perception. This is my favorite. So if you will think of 2 points either outside of yourself or inside of yourself, so you could think of your right big toe and your left ear. And if you will hold those in your brain, try and feel your right toe and your left ear at the same time. And while you do that, you might notice that there's no thoughts when you're really trying to feel both of those simultaneously. There's just no thoughts, right? There's no words chattering in your brain. So you can play with that, or you could go into what the kahuna would call hakala. So they would pick one point in front of you and go into your left spatial perception on the left, the peripheral vision, and then go into your right peripheral vision and hold all three of those points, the point in front of you and the left peripheral vision and the right peripheral vision. Hold all of that at the same time.
I just want to break that down just for if
Was
someone
that too
didn't.
fast?
Yeah, that was too fast for Hakalau. So
Okay.
no, it's okay because you're on a roll. So hold that thought. I want you to continue on that roll. But for Hakalau is so important. I love teaching it to my clients.
Yeah.
So you can even do this if you're driving because you're keeping your eyes open. But basically, look in front of you at a point. If you're in a room, look at the wall. Look at something in front of you. If you're driving, just look at the road. Keep looking where you should be going. But notice your peripheral. So notice as far as you can to the left and to the right as you're staring forward. Your eyes aren't moving, but notice if you can see, like if you're driving, notice if you can see the mirrors, the side view mirrors, both of the side view mirrors, and open up your peripheral so that you can see as much as possible and observe as much as possible in the room or in the car, wherever you are. And if you're not driving, you can actually stretch your arms out to each side and wiggle your fingers so that you can see them in the corner of your vision on either side while you're staring forward. So you're opening up, because most people walk around in life in tunnel vision. And when I remember doing this for the first time, and I freaked out because I'd never experienced my peripheral vision. I just was living life in tunnel vision. And that it neurologically changes us. And the Hunas, in the ancient Polynesian tradition of Huna, the Hawaiians knew that when we shift our perception to be aware of our periphery, that we are shifting our neurological state, and we cannot stay in a state of anger or stress while doing it. So that's Hakalau. And when we do that, when we're studying, we memorize things much better. It brings us into a calm state. So if we're on stage and we notice we get tunnel vision when we're on stage, if we're giving a presentation, we do this and it calms us down, makes us able to become aware of the whole room. But yeah, I love teaching this to my clients because it makes a big difference to them in relieving anxiety as well. So yeah, I'm glad you brought that up. Okay, continue.
Yeah. Well, it's really fun because when you play around with that spatial perception, you're inducing the right hippocampus of the brain, because that's a spatial perception, and it really induces a very calm state very quickly. So it's very, very cool, and that would be a good thing to play around with if you had any kind of ADHD symptoms. That would be really, really fun to play around with and see how well it affects you. And then if you were to put that together with heart rate variability, resonant breathing, then you'd really, really be playing with fire. You'd really have something.
Maybe not fire. Maybe cooking with fire, cooking with gas. Maybe not.
Yes.
Playing with fire sounds dangerous, but you mean like
it does.
You mean like now you are cooking.
I mean that now it's going to make you very dangerous when it comes to your own ADHD. You're going to have power that you didn't have before. When you walk into a room and you're nervous, it's going to give you power. It's going to give you tools in your toolbox that you didn't have before. So it's going to make you just a little bit dangerous.
In a good way. In a very productive way.
In a very beautiful, productive way. Absolutely. So
not in like a dangerous, like you're gonna implode or something. Like dangerous in that you're gonna kick butt.
That's right. And take names while you're at it.
Kick butt and take names. That's right.
Something
like that.
But in a very peaceful way.
Yeah, but yes, in a very we're pacifists in a way that would not harm anyone. We're just gonna kick proverbial butt.
That's right.
And take home the gold.
Exactly. Well,
Yeah.
yes, we have to be successful in whatever we do. So, and there's room for lots of success for everybody. So,
Do you see
very,
that, because you
very
love
fun.
studying the neuroscience of this? I know we've geeked out for hours on the phone, you telling me about left brain and right brain, and being able to access from one to the other and the benefits of that. But
Right.
my question is, when people, let's say complete newbies, are listening, not everyone, I know some of you are quite experienced, but let's say some of us are complete newbies, and we for the first time ever start doing this breath work you're going to teach us
Hmm.
to get heart rate variability for the many benefits such as
Right.
longevity and energy and vitality and peace, tranquility, and the ability to kick proverbial butt, all of that. So
Yes.
we're changing our breath. Does just the, let's say we didn't meditate, we didn't pray, we just kept our eyes open and took in the room, like took in our peripheral, kept our eyes open and slowed down our breath and did the things you're going to teach us to do to increase our heart rate variability, would that alone cause a shift to go into the right brain?
It's going to put you in the arena of that. It's going to put you much, much closer. It's the entry point. So there's a bunch of so there's some yogic jargon I can throw at you. So there's a state which yogis know about, which is called pratyahara, and that just means interiorization. But it's a really, really big deal when you're trying to get into a deep meditative state. And heart rate variability resonance is the beginning of that state. Absolutely. So it's, if you want to get into that kind of depth, this is where you have to be to do that. And so the results that come back, that's what you're asking. It's just phenomenal. It really is amazing. So people are trying to meditate, they're trying to get into a calm state, they're trying to feel better. And it's, it's okay. It's hit and miss. And yeah, I had this good session once upon a time. And then I did your heart rate variability resonant breathing, and it works every single, what the hell? It's a game changer. It's a huge shift. So I get that kind of feedback a lot, and it's makes it all worthwhile. Makes it really fun.
So it sounds like it's a easy win formula for getting some results.
Yes, every time,
Cool.
every
Every
time.
time. All right,
Yeah.
teach us. We're ready.
Okay. Great. So this is the Holy Trinity of breath, and it's just a good way to think about it is that we're boxing ourselves into the dorsal vagal nerve. We're going to make sure that we hit the parasympathetic nervous system every single time we sit, or you could do this standing as well. If you're going to go on stage or you're going to present something or you're going to talk to your boss, you can stand and you can do this for a minute or 2 or 5, and you're going to induce a much more calm state. You're going to get into the zone, and then you'll be ready to do whatever you're going to do. So, but what we're doing is we're just kind of making sure that we're going to get into that parasympathetic system, the dorsal vagal nerve. And so we're trying to box ourselves in. So that's what all the rules are for. So the first rule is put the breath rate under 7 breaths per minute. And so the first breath, so you got to kind of play with it. You got to play with it a little bit and see which one of the breaths feels the most comfortable for you. So a lot of people on my channel, they get really excited and they want to go to the very lowest breath rate. But that's not it. It's not a competition. It's just the one that fits
One
for you.
breath a minute. Let's
Yes,
go.
yes, exactly. And you can work up to that kind of thing, but in the beginning, it's just about what fits and what is correct for you. And so you want to try out all of the breaths, all of the breath rates, and see which one feels really comfortable and seems to bring you into this centered, balanced state very quickly. And so the first breath is going to be 4 seconds in and 5 seconds out. And then from there, you can try 5 seconds in and 6 seconds out. And then you can try 6 seconds in and 7 seconds out. And then you can anywhere between those 3 breaths. So the first one was 4 seconds in and 5 seconds out. Anywhere under that is going to put you into heart rate variability. The second rule is that as we're breathing, we want to accentuate that parasympathetic because, maybe we're in a slight stress state. And so we want to accentuate the parasympathetic and make sure we really get into it. So we're going to make the out breath slightly longer. So that's why the different numbers, 4 seconds in and at least 5 seconds out. And so that's going to accentuate the parasympathetic because the breath is going out, the diaphragm is up, there's more pressure on the thoracic cavity. That pressure translates to the dorsal vagal nerve. That sends a signal to the medulla. The medulla sends a signal to the heart rate. Go ahead and lower down a little bit. So that's how it works. And then the third rule is we want to take out the pauses. So the pause at the bottom of the breath and the pause at the top of the breath. While we're inducing this, we don't want those pauses because it can just mess up the cycle that we're trying to get into. And so we just don't have to hurry, but we don't want to pause for a long time. We want this nice rhythmic in and out breath to really get into that heart rate variability resonance. And that's the Holy Trinity. That's how you do it. So, do you want me to guide it for a second?
Yeah. Guide us for like a minute. Should we be breathing in through our mouth or nose? Does it matter?
Definitely through the nose.
And out through the nose or out through the mouth?
Out through the nose as well. It's the most economical for the body. It's going to put more carbon into the mix. That's one of the reasons you have a sinus passage, is to introduce carbon into the blood mix.
And if someone has a stuffy nose, it's okay to do this through the mouth?
It is, absolutely.
It's still effective. It's just more effective through the nose?
Correct.
Okay. Do you want to count when you do the seconds? 1, 2,
sure.
3, 4.
I can count. Absolutely.
Okay. All right. Okay, guide us.
All right, here we go. So we're going to start breathing in. 1, 2, 3, 4. Breathe out 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Breathe in. 1, 2, 3, 4. Breathe out. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Breathe in. 1, 2, 3, 4. Breathe out. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Breathe in. 1, 2, 3, 4. Breathe out. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Breathe in. 1, 2, 3, 4. Breathe out. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And that was a minute.
I totally went into parasympathetic. My hands started the shift because I know how it feels because, being a massage therapist in my past, you know when you're in parasympathetic. When my hands shifted, I always feel it first in my hands. Like there's a little bit of like a tingle and a shift in blood flow in my hands.
That's actually perfect. That's the very first sign. So I have a video called Clinical Mindfulness, and I teach these 4 proofs. And that's the very first one, that your hands become hot and heavy. I call it HHH. That's the HHH symptom that you are in heart rate variability.
Hands hot and heavy.
That's right. Hilarious, right?
What are the other symptoms?
But it sticks in your brain.
If I kept doing it, what else would I have noticed?
Yeah. So you have to sit very still to notice these things. That's helps you get into the freeze state in the body, a very good, positive kind of freeze state. And so the next thing that you might notice is you bring your mind to your lips, And you might notice that the blood kind of tingles in and tingles out of your lip, especially the bottom lip. And then if you go and put your mind on your spine, right along your thoracic cavity, right along your rib cage, right, your spine, put your mind there, and you might notice, actually start to feel the pressure on the dorsal vagal nerve, and it will feel really good. Maybe tingly, maybe pleasurable, maybe a cool feeling. And then, so that's the third one. And then the fourth one is to put your attention on your entire skin, and your whole skin may begin to tingle and might feel a little bit crawly, like a crawling sensation. And it's extremely pleasurable. All of these are very, very pleasurable. So I call these meditative mellows because they feel very good. And it's a great sign that you are doing everything correctly and the parasympathetic system is working for the first time, maybe in a long time, very, 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 very well. So that breath rate that we just did, it might be fast for some people, but it is the entry point. That's the entry breath rate that we need to get into heart rate variability. We have to be under that breath rate. So from there, you can just take it, whatever's comfortable for you.
I know you just published 3 videos on your YouTube channel.
That's right.
Just this week, showing the different breath rates. I don't remember the titles.
Mm-hmm. So in the music has to be steady. So you have to kind of cheat to make the in-breath shorter and the out-breath longer. So it's
What was the title?
Heart rate variability, resonant breathing with music.
Okay. A very straightforward title. And
Thank
it
you.
was like you had 3 different ones that were the different breath rates, right?
Yes. Yeah. So it's 4, 4, 5, 5, and 6, 6. But like I said, you try and make that out breath just a tiny bit longer. And the music is beautiful. Doug Gemmell gave that music to me so that I could help me out to produce those videos. Really, really beautiful music. So very relaxing, and it teaches you something which is so deep. This heart rate variability resonance. It's just so profound. Every deep state that you have in a meditation is built on top of that. Guaranteed. You can't skip it. It's in there somewhere.
When I asked, this was, I don't know, 300 episodes ago, I asked a naturopath what's, like, right at the end of the interview. So the interview wasn't necessarily about this, but it was near the end of the interview, and I said, what's the one thing that you tell all your clients to have? Like, is there a gadget? And she said, I've asked this a few times, so I've gotten a few really cool answers. Like, one naturopath said, 100% of my clients, I tell them to get a grounding mat. And that was my first time ever hearing about grounding mats. And now, while we're talking, I'm on my grounding mat because I love it so much. And I have some
Nice.
great interviews about grounding mats. And an entire documentary is pinned in the Learn to Health Facebook group about grounding and earthing and the scientific benefits of it, that it actually decreases inflammation in the body, and explains how by giving up excess electrons the body shouldn't be storing, that it significantly decreases the imbalance in the body to the point where people are going into remission who have MS. So really, grounding and earthing makes a huge difference. So this question has gotten me a lot of mileage. And I asked this one naturopath, sort of along the lines of what's really important for 100% of your clients, or what's really important for all of us to know about. And she said, we should all be aware of our heart rate variability. And she told me about this machine that you wear, like a heart monitor, that's over $200, and that you put it on every morning and it reads out your heart rate variability. And I was confused because I'm thinking, is this just like a heart monitor? And she goes, I said, wouldn't it change throughout the day? And she goes, no, it's just you wake up first thing in the morning, you put it on. And again, I'm thinking this is not really accessible for all the listeners to spend a few $100s on a little machine that you're just wearing, for a minute a day, and it's going to tell you what your heart rate variability is. But her thing is, she was not teaching us how to affect heart variability necessarily. She was teaching to use it like a diabetic would use a glucometer. You get
Wow.
up first thing in the morning and you test you read out your heart rate variability with this machine to determine if the last 24 hours were good for you or not good for you. And she said, for example, and I've heard this from other experts, one glass of wine or beer or one basically alcoholic beverage throws us into the stress response for 24 hours, throws us out of heart rate variability for 24 hours. And she said
Wow.
with her clients, because she gets her clients to buy this machine and report back to her, that if they ate something they're allergic to, let's say they're allergic to dairy or eggs or gluten or whatever, or they ate a lot of sugar, a lot of highly processed foods the day before, or they had a fight with their spouse, or they hate their job and they had a fight with their boss, whatever, something stressful happened, or they drank alcohol. The next day, even though they just woke up and they were sleeping for, let's say, 7, 8 hours, they should be in a state of rest. But their
Right.
heart rate variability, it will prove otherwise. It will prove that
Right.
they're still in a stress response and in their endocrine system and their digestive system. Their whole body is not in healing mode, or either in stress mode or healing mode. And
Right.
that even though they slept, they were sleeping in a state of stress and not in a state of relaxation. And so she uses this device to go, see, look, whatever you did yesterday isn't working for you. And then the next day or a few days later, you take your reading and you're like, wow, I have really good heart rate variability. And she goes, okay, whatever you ate yesterday, keep eating it. Whatever you did yesterday, keep doing it because it's working. So she
Right.
used the machine as a way of proving that what they're doing is working or not working. Because she can tell her clients don't drink alcohol, but they're not going to listen. But if they
Right.
see that they're in a state of stress, they're like, wow, she's right. Because we drink, I mean, I don't drink, but people drink alcohol to calm down because they feel stressed out and they want to relax. And it's acceptable in today's society to use alcohol, just like also use sugar. You know, it's sort of a meme. Oh, women are stressed out or they broke up with their boyfriend. They're going to eat a pint of ice cream. And it's a dangerous meme to continue to push on us, this idea that we need to self-medicate with sugar or alcohol in order to manage our emotions. And when it actually doesn't, it doesn't decrease our stress levels. It'll temporarily give us a dopamine high and make us feel good, but it sends the
Right.
body into a state of stress and not healing. And then when we're in that state of stress, the next stressor that happens pushes us over the edge and makes us feel overwhelmed. So we have to manage ourselves more with sugar or alcohol. And then we're closer to our breaking point again. So then some little stressor happens, like someone honks at us, and then our nervous system or our endocrine system and nervous system freak out again. So it's like our fuse for our ability to handle crap in our life becomes shorter and shorter and shorter and shorter. And when we stop drinking alcohol and stop using sugar and highly processed foods as a way of self-medicating, because all those things are making our fuse shorter and shorter, our ability to handle crap, right, before we kind of hit our breaking point. If
Right.
we stop using that and we decrease the inflammation in our body so that our nervous system can kind of actually take on more stimulus before we reach our breaking point, before we feel overwhelmed and stressed, and we increase our heart rate variability, now we have a long fuse. And I know you, Forrest, I mean, I've known you, we've been really good friends for a long time. And you have
Right.
a really long fuse for handling stress and handling BS. So I think that on an emotional, mental health level, this is very helpful as well. So that's my first exposure to heart rate variability, was this idea that we could use it like measuring our blood sugar or our blood pressure as a means of seeing if what we're doing is working or not. But you're saying we don't need to spend a few $100s on a machine. We can just do the breathing anyway and also clean up other areas of our life to better serve our health. But by doing the breathing, we're increasing our heart rate variability and thus making that fuse longer and being able to, our threshold wider for being able to handle stress in our life.
Absolutely. absolutely. That all of that was perfect. Everything you said was perfect. And yes, it you can actually affect these things. It's kind of amazing. So yeah, you just do the breathing, and it's going to reset your system, your recalibrate your parasympathetic nervous system to start working properly again. If it's been out of whack, maybe you're very peaceful already, but this is going to make you more peaceful and more profoundly relaxed. So it gets
Even
really,
more.
yes,
That's right.
down the rabbit hole we go. It's a very, very, very cool thing. So
Awesome. I love it, Forrest. I love having you on the show. It's so great. You're one of my favorite people in the whole world. And so it's an
thank you.
honor. It's an honor to have you here. I really encourage listeners to go to thatyogiguy.com, which will take them straight to your YouTube channel. And you've produced a lot of fantastic YouTube videos. And listeners, if you have more questions for Forrest, please check out his YouTube channel and comment in any of the videos asking him questions or requesting topics for him to cover, because he will do it. He does. He's very active on his YouTube channel. He will reply to his comments. He will take video requests because he loves teaching. Ever since I've known you, you have just loved teaching and loved helping people. You have this equal love of helping people and teaching. So you're just this perfect person to learn from, and you're very humble. I don't. It. You
I
actually.
am.
You.
I am very humble.
Well,
I'm
I mean, you kind of like. I guess
actually writing a book about it. It's
you're
called
writing a book about how humble and great you are.
yes, it's called Humility and How I Attained It. That's not my. I have to say that's not my joke. I stole that joke from what was his name?
If you weren't humble, you would have owned the joke. You can
That's right.
just own the joke for us. It's okay. You don't need to give credit. Stop being so humble.
Okay, you're right. You're right. I really should. It's a horrible thing.
It's a stop it. Americans
Stop it.
don't understand. It doesn't make sense to us, right?
Yes.
You have a great amount of information for people, but the way in which you package your information comes across so that we can all understand it. So I just love how you teach. This is where I'm complimenting you and thanking you. So
Oh,
thank
thank
you.
you.
Yeah. Now your
You are
website,
amazing.
thatyogiguy.com, you have a book, Hacking the Universe. Is there anything else that we should know?
I'm
Any
gonna come out with a training very, very shortly.
Yeah. Sweet. Tell us about your training.
Yeah, it's gonna be. So I'm working on it now. I'm actually editing it. I have a couple more clips to finish, and it's going to be on heart rate variability and how to take that very, very deep into a very deep meditation.
Into
So
the
if
right brain?
not all the way into the right brain, we can't do that in one training. That's going to take 4 trainings. So I actually have 4 trainings in my brain, and I've never seen anything like them. So it's really exciting for that reason, that it's going to be, if you're in the meditation world or you have meditative interests, they're going to be extremely powerful. So it's combining a lot of information in a way which is very palatable, like you say, very easy to access. So it's going to be kind of off the hook. So very excited.
Awesome. And I know you have a Facebook group for your students, those who
Yes,
follow you on YouTube and watch learn from all your videos. You have a Facebook group. We'll make sure the link to that is also in the show notes. What's the name of the Facebook group?
it's Meditate with Forrest. So very easy to remember,
Meditate
and
with
it's
Forrest.
Forrest Gump.
No.
Well, I do that whenever I ask. Sometimes people don't hear my name because it's a strange name to them, and so they don't actually hear it. So I started, every time I ask for something at a diner or something like that, and they ask for my name, I'll always say, like Forrest Gump. So
And they love that? The people like that
oh, they
joke?
always laugh. So
You're the only Forrest I know that likes Forrest Gump. I interviewed another Forrest, and he said that he doesn't like that movie, that it was like people teased him in
oh
school.
yeah,
And I'm
Oh
like,
yeah,
no, my friend Forrest loved it and he got so much mileage out of it. And it sounds like you're
I
still getting
did.
mileage out of it.
Well, you turn the joke around and you use it, and then it's fun. And so, yeah, people would be like, "Run, Forrest," and I'd call back, "I'm a running fool. That boy is a running fool." So, yeah, I loved it. It was great.
I like that you disarmed. Well, that's another thing we didn't get to talk about is Aikido, but you disarm people, the
That's right.
bullies. You've never let the bullies get you down because you just disarm them.
Right. Well, I kind of had to. So, yeah, there's a very famous book called "Giving In to Get Your Way," and it's a beautiful principle that you can see in a lot of different martial arts. But yeah, if somebody's joking at you and you run with the joke, you've completely diffused the entire situation, and
Yes.
and
Yes.
it's very
Yes.
powerful.
That is a great tool for that's so great. So I had this 1-star review. So I have like well over 700, almost 800 5-star reviews on
Nice.
iTunes. And I have like 41 1 stars. And which one do you think I focus on?
Yeah, the
Do you
negative.
think I focus on the 800 people who took the time to give me a 5-star review and tell me how much they
Right.
love the show? Or do you think I focus on the 41 people that
Right.
hate me, that
Yes.
wish
Yes.
I would like die or something? I mean, the 41. So, of course, this part of my brain's like, there's 41 people in the world that don't like me. And and I have to tell myself to suck it up because I'm not doing it. I'm not doing the podcast for the 41 people that hate me. I'm doing it for all the people I
Right.
want to I want to help. I want to help people. And those are the people I'm doing it for. The people who appreciate it, not the people who don't appreciate it. But this one person once left me a 1-star review that said that I sound like I sound like I'm a cow because when I go that
Oh,
I'm sound like I'm mooing, and at first I was like, how dare, oh crap, they're right. They're right. And so though then I just started laughing because I'm editing. As I'm editing the show, I'm listening and like every time I go, I'm like, oh my gosh, I really do sound like, but is that bad? I love cows. They're beautiful creatures. Like they're amazing animals. They're so much fun to visit when we take our son to like this sanctuary farm and oh my gosh, if I could cuddle a cow, I would. They're the coolest things, right? So like why am I
nice.
upset about this? Because this guy's trying to insult me. And then I realized like he could have said, and I'm assuming his gender is male, only because I don't think a female would have said that about me, but that's just my bias. So I'm assuming that he's a guy and he has nothing better to do than like rip on the fact that once in a while I go to a guest's really cool, whatever they said's really cool, and I moo apparently,
Right.
and I'm like, that's the only thing he
It's a
could
very
come up with. Like he could have he couldn't find anything to make fun of the show. Like that's the only thing. Like that's kind of a compliment in and of itself that there's nothing wrong with the show. He couldn't find anything wrong with it, but that I sound like I'm mooing when I hum praise to someone's comment. And so I just kind of laughed it off and laughed it off. And it could have eaten me. It would have eaten me for days, but I laughed about it. And then he
that's good.
deleted the comment. A few days later, I looked
Wow.
back and he retracted his 1-star, and that's really cool. I would in other ways, in other 1-stars, I have obsessed about what they said because there's no way to write back to them and be like and try to explain myself.
Mm,
And sometimes someone gives me a 1-star for something a guest said. I have no control over that. It's just kind of silly.
right. Right.
The fact that you can take bullying and laugh at it and not take it personally but laugh at it, then you've won. You've gained control of the situation.
You really turned it around mentally, and that's so amazing. That's fantastic, and it's so easy to fall in that. A lot. I've listened to a number of YouTubers comment about how you deal with really, really grumpy trolling, and
They're brutal on
it's
YouTube. Oh my
oh
gosh.
yeah,
My husband, I'm so thankful. He just deletes the comments. Like
right,
they're really brutal. He won't let me see them and that's good because he knows I'll go into a tailspin. Like
wow,
I care so much. And the thing is I've worked on this for so long, like my ability to kind of fluff it off The
Right.
people on YouTube are brutal. And we post
Yeah.
all the episodes of the show on YouTube.
Right.
And they're like, there's a level of trolling on YouTube that, like, I understand why children are committing suicide. It's the second leading cause of death between the ages of 10 and 24. Suicide's gone up
Wow.
52% in the last 10 years for
Right.
children ages 10 through 24. And I understand they're
Yeah.
being bullied in, like, just so brutally. And if
Yeah.
there's a way to, well, obviously we need to shelter our children from that, because when someone is 10,
Yeah.
that level of bullying is devastating. But when we're like 30, yeah, it's
Yeah.
harmful, but we can kind of like go, okay, let's use our logic brain. Let's not, end
Right.
our life over it, right?
Right.
And so I love that you brought up this book. What was the book again?
Giving in to get your way. It's a great old Aikido book.
I saw a video on Facebook, and it was a presenter in front of a middle school, I think it was, and he
Hmm.
had a girl come up. I've seen this video kind of circulate through. It has millions and millions of views. So if you ever see it on Facebook, watch it. It's so good. And it's like how to end bullying immediately. And he says to this girl, okay, like, just bully me, right? Just say really mean things. And she's a bit,
Oh, I
like,
saw this.
nervous. And she's like, oh, okay. She's like, you really suck. And he's
Yeah.
like, you're right. When you're right, you're so right. And she's like, yeah, I'm right. And you're wrong and you're dumb. And he's like, you know what? I just love how right you are. And, you're so pretty. And she couldn't keep a straight face. She kept trying to bully him.
Right.
And he just kept owning it and smiling and being her friend. And she was just like, she was totally disarmed. She had nowhere to go. And the
Right.
whole audience, all the kids just freaked out and cheered, and they thought it was so great that it was, if we can not let it land in our psyche and
Yeah.
bruise our ego, but if we can slough it off,
Yes.
that is really helpful. So I love it.
Abs- Absolutely. Yeah. It's that's a very good recipe. So you could build on top of that recipe and have a more complex way to deal with it, so that you don't have to like own the negative. You could like kind of just let it bypass you completely. But that's a great place to start, is just take it all in and say, okay, whatever. It's a great way. Yeah. But
Yeah.
it's hard. It's tough. I get comments, and then I go meditate, so.
Nice. Nice. In
But
meditation, do you ever like have these insights? You're like, oh, that's why they probably said that, or,
oh
like,
yeah.
I mean, do
Well,
you find such clarity with your
I do.
thoughts when you meditate?
Yes. Yes, it will diffuse to the point where I disassociate from the body. The body just kind of disappears. And so then you're just left with your perception itself. And then it's just becomes very simple. But you have to get to that point, If you're in a stress state, you won't be able to get to that point. You'll be stuck with it. So that's where the word attachment comes from. You're attached to the problem. And that's, where we usually begin, is that something happens and we get overly attached to that negative happening. And then we can't release ourselves from it. So we can't even begin to think logically because we're so wrapped up in it. So
So when's your course coming out?
very, very soon, I think maybe a week.
Awesome. Very cool. And so listeners
Yeah.
can, by the time this gets published and they're listening to it, it'll just be days away, if not already released. It's very exciting. They can find you in your Facebook group, Meditate with Forrest. Forrest
Yes.
Knutson, not Forrest Gump, but just Meditate with Forrest. Do you think if they typed in Meditate with Forrest Gump, that would show up too? Or is there like a different,
Ah,
you have to check. You
there
never
might be.
know. There,
Meditate with Forrest Gump. That
yeah,
would be a pretty.
that'd be
You might probably run a lot, but it would be a
right. And
great
eat
group.
chocolate or something. Yeah.
That's right.
So mow a lawn, make some
Very good
shrimp.
things.
Yeah. I love that movie.
That's great. I love it.
I
Yeah, it
wonder
was
how
so
many
good.
listeners haven't seen that movie, because it's kind of old, but it's such a
It's
classic.
it's so classic. It's just has this simple purity to him, which is what the whole movie's about. It's that simple purity will win in the end.
Yeah. I love it. Awesome. And it does make you feel like you walk away from that movie feeling like Like you can win. I love that.
Yes.
It does lift
Yeah.
you up. So that's good. If he can do it, I can do it.
Right.
So Meditate with Forrest, Facebook group, go to thatyogiguy.com to gain access to the YouTube videos, and buy the book, Hacking the Universe, if you want to go deeper with Forrest, or just wait for the course. Have you come up with a name, a title for your course, a final title, or are you still working on a working title?
Let me think about that. What am I calling this? Oh, yes. So it's going to be called The Fourth Phase of Breath, also the Tranquil Breath. So those will both be in the title, The Fourth Phase of Breath.
Okay.
Yeah.
And that'll be part 1 of 4 to get into the right brain.
So when I say get into the right brain, I mean samadhi. I mean, that's what the whole, so that's a very deep state. So I think another name for that is satori, but it's the merging, to merge with one thought. But that's a very, very deep state.
Cool. So basically, if we want to go deep, we keep following you.
Perfect.
Down the rabbit hole.
That's right. Down the rabbit hole we go.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Forrest, for coming on the show. It's been such a pleasure having you here today. Anything you want to say to wrap up today's interview? Anything left unsaid that you want to make sure we cover?
Well, you are one of my favorite people. You are a genius, and I love everything that you do. And thank you so much for having me.
Oh, you're so welcome. And compliments always welcome. It helps to displace those 41 one-star reviews on iTunes
Yes.
to hear all your beautiful comments. So
Beautiful.
awesome. Thank you so much, Forrest. I really hope that this episode makes a difference for all my fantastic listeners. And we'll just have to stay in touch and let us know how your course goes, launching your course and all your students and their results. I know you're in the Learn to Health Facebook group, so we'll just continue the conversation there. Listeners, if you have any questions for Forrest, you could also post them in the Learn to Health Facebook group as well. It's Forrest Knutson, thatyogiguy.com. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
We'll have to have you back on again at some point, because I know I want you to teach more about getting into the right brain. That's just, samadhi sounds so neat, especially from the neuroscience perspective, like what happens to the brain and the different brain waves, because I know you're really into that.
Yeah, there's a lot that still needs to be uncovered about brain waves. It's really, really amazing.
So we'll just get into that in another interview.
Absolutely.
All right, sounds good. Okay, thanks so much.
All right, take care.
Hello, true health seeker. Have you ever thought about becoming a health coach? Do you love learning about nutrition and how we can shift our lifestyle and our diet so that we can gain optimal health and happiness and longevity? Do you love helping your friends and family to solve their health problems and to figure out what they can do to eat healthier? Are you interested in becoming someone who can grow their own business, support people in their success? Do you love helping people? You might be the perfect candidate to become a health coach. I highly recommend checking out the Institute for Integrative Nutrition. I just spent the last year in their health coaching certification program, and it really blew me away. It was so amazing. I learned over 100 dietary theories. I learned all about nutrition, but from a standpoint of how we can help people to shift their life and shift their lifestyle to gain true holistic health. I definitely recommend you check them out. You can Google Institute for Integrative Nutrition, or IIN, and give them a call, or you can go to learntruehealth.com/coach and you can receive a free module of their training to check it out and see if it's something that you'd be interested in. Be sure to mention my name, Ashley James, and the Learn to Health podcast, because I made a deal with them that they will give you the best price possible. I highly recommend checking it out. It really changed my life to be in their program, and I'm such a big advocate that I wanted to spread this information. We need more health coaches. In fact, health coaching is the largest growing career right now in the health field. So many health coaches are getting in and helping people because you can work in chiropractic offices, doctors' offices, you can work in hospitals, you can work online through Skype and help people around the world. You can become an author, you can go into the school system and help your local schools shift their programs to help children be healthier. You can go into senior centers and help them to shift their diet and lifestyle to best support them in their success and their health goals. There's so many different available options for you when you become a certified health coach. So check out IIN, check out the Institute for Integrative Nutrition. Mention my name, get the best deal. Give them a call and they'll give you lots of free information and help you to see if this is the right move for you. Classes are starting soon. The next round of classes are starting at the end of the month. So you're going to want to call them now and check it out. And if you know anyone in your life who would be an amazing coach, please tell them about it. Being a health coach is so rewarding and you get to help so many people. Are you looking to get the best supplements at the lowest price? For high quality supplements and to talk to someone about what supplements are best for you, go to takeyoursupplements.com and one of our fantastic true health coaches will help you pick out the right supplements for you that are the highest quality and the best price. That's takeyoursupplements.com. takeyoursupplements.com. That's takeyoursupplements.com. Be sure to ask about free shipping and our awesome referral program.